وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. Continuing on with the hadith of ahkam in the chapter of the description of the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The next hadith, عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يرفع يديه حذو منكبيه إذا افتتح الصلاة وإذا كبر للركوع وإذا رفع رأسه من الركوع رفعهما كذلك أيضا وقال سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد وكان لا يفعل ذلك في السجود. It's a hadith narrated by Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, and this is a hadith that talks about the raising of the hands in the salah, the sunnah, or whether or not it's a sunnah to raise the hands in the salah for the different positions. But this hadith is by Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would raise his hands to the level of his shoulders when he began the salah. So the opening salah, as we all do, Allahu Akbar, we raise our hands. And some of the narrations mentions the ears and all of this kind of stuff. But he would raise his hands up to his shoulders when he began the salah. And when he made the takbir for the ruku', and when he raised his head from the ruku', and he would say, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd, and he would not do that, meaning he would not raise his hands when going into sujood. And so this is a hadith that, similar to this narration, has been narrated by a great number of the Sahaba, a great number of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, to which some of the ulama of hadith, they mentioned that this is a hadith mutawatir, that means this is a hadith that has been narrated by so many companions that it's one of those that holds a lot of weight. And 2.5 out of the 4 schools of law, I want you to keep up with me here, 2.5 out of the 4 schools of law, right? How can it be 2.5? Well, in one school there's a difference of opinion. They're also, they establish this as a sunnah in the salah. Now it's a sunnah, it's not an obligation. Nobody says this is an obligation in the salah that you must raise your hands in this position. There's another hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, where he mentions that, أَلَا أُصَلِّي بِكُمْ صَلَاةَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, shall I not pray for you the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And he raised his hands in the opening takbir, and he didn't do it after that. Meaning in the ruku' and the sujood and coming up from the ruku', he didn't raise his hands after that. So there's another hadith where that a sahabi is praying without doing this, and there are these hadith where the sahaba are praying while doing this, and this is how we establish it is a sunnah. If it was an obligation, they would roughly all be doing the same thing. They wouldn't be disagreeing like this, and they're not disagreeing. What you have is the extra actions in salah versus the minimum actions in salah. Just like you're required to read Fatiha, but not anything after that. And so someone can recite Fatiha and pray, someone can recite Fatiha and the surah. Doesn't mean there's a contradiction, right? But the Shafi'i school, the Hanbali school, and some of the scholars of the Maliki school, they establish that this is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, meaning that it should be done, right? That it should be done. And in the Hanafi school and the other half of the Maliki school, they take the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu to say that that is the sunnah, meaning that at the end of it all, the Prophet ﷺ did not used to raise his hands, and so they followed that sunnah. So difference of interpretation on these narrations. But again, so many of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ have narrated this. And what do we do? What do we do when we have 2 different sunnahs that are being narrated? Right? How are we supposed to deal with it? And one of the things that we understand is we should act on all of them. We should act on all of them. And so, so you can pray while doing the raising of the hands sometimes, and then you can also pray without doing the raising of the hands sometimes, because all of it goes back to the Prophet ﷺ. All of it goes back to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. There is no such thing as camps, right? There's no such thing as camps. The madahib are schools. They're there to help you understand and learn, and they're there for the ulama to have an established system to learn and judge. And, some of the end results of the madahib was to produce the qadis, the judges in the system, so that they could rule in the lands or whatever the case may be. These are not separate camps. These are not separate religions, right? And so when you have narrations of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in both ways, then for you it's permissible for you, and it's good to pray in both of those ways. And as a matter of fact, I remember hearing from some of our Hanafi scholars as well, that they also would tell their students that you should pray some salah while doing the raising the hands, or at least one salah in your life while doing the raf'ul yadayn, because it is established that the Prophet ﷺ did that in the first place, right? And so this is how we treat these actions in salah. But again, this is a description of the Prophet ﷺ salah. Why do we do it? Allahu A'lam. We do it in the beginning of salah. We do it multiple times in the Eid salah. One of the things that the scholars have mentioned is that this is like you're throwing everything behind you, entering into a spiritual state. Just like human nature, we for anything we do, we have a lot of signs. We have some rituals and signs. If you look at the military, they always have their salutes, right? You look at gangs, they have their handshakes and signs and all these kinds of. Everybody does something with their hands. This is human nature in order to establish something. And so the raising of the hands is one of the things that we do to establish that we are focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one of the things that we do. We start the salah with this, and we have these reminders throughout the salah as well. And again, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us to implement the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.